Hello, historical authors. Today we are going to work on our opinion essay. Okay, and I know that you are already experts on how to write opinion essays using the Persuade Me poster. You're going to use it again. Today what I'm going to teach you is how to make your opinion essay even stronger, and that's how to choose the perfect evidence. When you use evidence in your writing, you want your evidence to be very convincing. The more convincing your evidence, the more convinced your reader will become. And when you're convincing someone about a historical event, there are many different ways you can have evidence. So I'm going to go over that with you. Now, some of the ways that you can have evidence are you can use quotes, and there's two different types of quotes you can use. You can use quotes of what somebody said then. So like you could pull a quote from the Mariano Paredes, the Mexican president, on what he said about his decision to go to war, have Mexico go to war against the United States. So you can use his exact words because it's in that document we gave you. You can use quotes as well from the resources. So if you pull a quote from California Studies Weekly or any of the handouts we give you of an expert who wrote about it or wrote about that event, that is also a quote. So you can use a quote you can use a quote of what somebody said back then, but you have to know it's those exact words. So you have to find it in one of the resources we've given you, or use the expert words. The words from an expert. Now, when you use a quote, it shouldn't be more than a sentence. If you do more than a sentence, maybe a sentence and a half, you get into the area of plagiarizing. Like, there is such thing as lifting too much, taking too much from a resource, okay? So you want to make sure that you only use about a sentence or so. So really be thoughtful about choosing the best sentence possible, okay? So that's one type of evidence you can use. Another type of evidence you can use are lists. So you can use it in your own words, but you'll be talking about what the event was. So starting each sentence the same, but having, the same kind of a similar beginning, but a different ending. For example, the Bear Flaggers thought they deserved California because they thought they could do a better job than Mexico because they didn't like the way Mexico was running, whatever. You get what I'm saying. But you could have a couple different reasons. Okay, and then the other type of evidence you can use is events and dates. So you can write lists of things in your own words, or you can use just the name of an event and the date it happened. So you can be like, in 1848, 30 American settlers were outside General Mariano Vallejo's home, and they dawn, and they were ready to attack and take over, to imprison him and take over control of California. The reason why they were attacked, this would be that would be your quote, that could be your evidence, right? And then you have to explain it. The reason why they were outside his home, the reason why they chose General Mariano Vallejo to take control away from him and have him surrender, or hope that he'll surrender, or fight him to surrender, is because he was the leader of Alta California in that region. So when you defeat the leader of a region, you become the new leader. So that is what the Bear Flaggers' plan was. Capture the leader, defeat the leader, General Mariano Vallejo, and by capturing him, they become the new leader, okay? So that's where your explain is. You're elaborating and showing your reader why this action proves your reason, okay? So like I said, you can do quotes from somebody at the time or from a document. You can have lists. You can have just the event and the date, okay? So I'm going to show you right now what I did for mine, okay? So I told you in my plan that I'm going to write my opinion essay about the Monterey Convention and statehood. And I'm going to be honest, it really took me some time to think about, how am I going to really convince you? Am I just going to write about the Monterey Convention, or am I just going to write about the fact of when California became an official state? And I've decided to use both because they work together. What happened at the Monterey Convention by writing the California Constitution helped get California statehood. So the two events are a little too short on their own, but I think together they're very powerful. So I've combined them. Okay, so what I used as mine, so what I did is I organized my notes. I'm going to show you how the way I organized my own notes. Yeah, I did all that. And I'm not a fourth grader. That's how much I care about you boys and girls making really strong notes. The stronger your notes, the more evidence you have, the better your essay, okay? So today what you're going to do is you're going to plan your essay. You're going to take a picture and upload it of your evidence for all 3 reasons. You're going to also start writing that chapter. I expect to see the thesis and the reasons of everybody's opinion essay today, okay? Well, of my class, and Miss Carrad of her class, okay? So that means I want to see your notes, and I want to see you the thesis and the 3 reasons, the introduction written for your opinion essay. You will get to complete your opinion essay Tuesday. By the end of Tuesday, the whole essay is done. So let me show you about my notes, okay? So first I have my thesis. I have reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. So here I can show you right here. So here I wrote my thesis. And you see, I kind of had different notes in different places. It took me a little bit of time of thinking about it, looking at my materials, what I had. So remember this paper for the Monterey Convention. Remember this paper for the 31st state. So I was looking at my materials to decide of my reasons. Like the more I can find, the more I can write about. So here we go. Thesis. The Monterey Convention and California statehood together, remember I told you using those 2 events together, were important events. That's my thesis. That it was important. Your thesis should be the same. Was important because with the Mexican-American War, though, you can say it was unfair. That can be your thesis, or it can be, you know, it actually should be considered the U.S. invasion because, and you can have the Mexico point of view if you want. You don't have to. You can just say the event was important if you like. The Monterey Convention and California statehood were important because, here's my 3 reasons. They're kind of long, but I know they're good because I looked in my events and I looked in my research to get ideas for my reasons. They gave California official organized American leadership, so an American leadership where before it was a mixture of Mexican and American still. Gave U.S. citizens voting rights, because remember we learned about how the Americans living on the territory wanted the same rights they had back at home, and gave California its constitution. I ended with that because that is something we still use today. So I really wanted to focus on my strongest reason being my 3rd. So I really end my essay with a punch, okay? So now I'm going to get into my evidence. I'm going to show it to you, not because I'm trying to teach you about the Monterey Convention and statehood. You already know that. I want you to look at my notes as a writer and look at the combination of different kinds of evidence I used, like I told you about. Quotes from people and from resources, lists, events, and dates. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to show you right now. First, I have my first reason of official American leadership. So the only reason why I got that idea is because I looked in my notes and I looked in my resources for resources for reaching all learners. So I was at handout. That's what it said at the bottom. Quote, most of all California's pueblos were still governed by the alcaldes appointed by Mexican governments. I had to look up that word. Alcalde just means a mayor. So a lot of, and a pueblo means a town. So a lot of California towns, and they called them pueblos because it was the ones that Mexicans were living in, they were still being actually run by the mayors that were chosen by the Mexican government, even though it was California territory. Unless you ask them to stop doing what they're doing, they're just going to continue. So that was one thing, is they decided, you know, some places are still being governed by Mexican leaders, even though it's American land. So this convention and statehood made it be all American. So that's one reason it was important, because it changed the government.
The second piece of evidence I had for official American leadership, okay, is that General Riley, he was the military governor, okay? So I didn't actually know what a military governor was, so I had to look it up. And I'm telling the truth. That means a supreme authority, so the most powerful person in charge over a territory. But they can never be a governor over a state. They only do it over a territory. So I looked that up in the freedictionary.com. So notice how I'm writing down where I got my resources so I can use these quotes. I have 2 pieces of evidence for each of my reasons, and I want you to have the same. So here I have a quote from what the expert wrote, and here I took a fact. So I just took a fact, and that would be in my own words, okay? Reason 2, it gave the U.S. citizens voting rights. So here I go. The first piece of evidence was the Americans wanted the same voting rights as their home states. So that was what they said in the Researching All Learners. And then I had to kind of separate it and think about it. My second one was they wanted to vote for leaders in Congress, national government, senators, and House of Representatives. So again, this isn't my own words, but I'm describing what I read in that document, okay? So you can do that too. You can put it in your own words. And I might even turn this into a list later. Reason 3, we have our California Constitution. So I looked it up online, and it said explains agreements on how California will be governed. So it gives California a voice in their own government. So I'm kind of doing my explain for myself right here. It explained the border of our state. It made us a free state. And then it had the laws representing people's interests. So a lawyer, doctor, farmer, and that was in my class handout. So I'm going to use quotes from the class handout. So this is just me writing it to myself, but I'm going to quote it directly from the handout. And here I actually use a quote. If you can hear that in the background, my doggy has the zoomies right now. Anyways, I actually got a quote from General Riley. It was in our text, that handout I gave you. And he said, the formation of a state constitution or territorial government. So what he said there is that when they said, General Riley, do you think we should be a state? Or do you think we should change the government? And he goes, something's not working. We either need a constitution, so we either need laws, or we need to have a territorial government. Now, what I found out was my new knowledge as required stage. Oh yeah, this is what I learned too. I didn't know exactly what a territorial government was. But what I found out was a territorial government is a required stage, a required time that every space must be in before it becomes officially a state. And basically California was allowed to skip that. That was really unusual, okay?
So authors, what I can tell you is this. When you're finding your evidence, you might find that the more you research, it can get a little bit more confusing. You might have new questions. How does a territorial government exactly work? What is the difference of a military governor and a regular governor? These were my questions. Me, Ms. Thompson, I've been teaching this for years, but I still was like, I don't quite know exactly all the answers. And what I found is I had to research more, and that is okay. So, historical authors, you might find a piece of evidence and then need to look up a little bit more, whether it's in a dictionary online like I did, or on another website to support your evidence, but that also is another opportunity for evidence. So today, work really hard to choose good, strong evidence that really shows what you're saying in your reasons. Remember, if it's a quote from a text, it shouldn't be more than a sentence or so. So really find the best part of the sentence or series of sentences that you want to use. You can also put a lot of it in your own words. You can just say that it said that in California Studies Weekly, but you paraphrased it. You also can explain the dates and the places that events happened. That is evidence too, even in your words. And you can use a quote from a person then. A strong essay has a variety of evidence. So notice that in my model for you, I had a quote from a person, a quote from a resource. I put it in my own words, and I even paraphrased it, like pulling it from a document. The only thing I didn't have is lists, so I might go and add that later. Writers, good luck today. Two pieces of evidence for every reason. You must upload a picture of that today, and then start writing your thesis and 3 reasons. Just that introduction, okay? And your Google Doc. That is what is required of you today. If you want to do more, you can always do more. Tomorrow, you will finish this essay, okay? So the hardest part is actually finding the evidence. Once you've got this, you just copy and you know the format for the Persuade Me. If you have any questions, it's so important that you email Ms. Karad or me, whoever your teacher is, and we are here to help you. We are here to do Google Meets with you, whatever you need, okay? So just make sure you ask. But again, 2 pieces of evidence for each one of your 3 reasons. Your thesis is was important because, unless you want to do something a little different. You may email your teacher to ask for help if you want to do something a little different. Okay, you got this. Follow the Persuade Me format when you get to your typing phase. And good luck. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Take care.